How would you feel if the next time you went to the doctor and had some examinations and some tests, the doctor said to you, "Mr. Jones or Mrs. Smith, I'm very sorry to tell you, but you have cancer." Would that strike fear into your heart? I'll bet it would. But I'm here to tell you, cancer doesn't scare me anymore. Oh, sure, you say. You're the doctor. You tell the patient they have cancer. It's no problem. But I'm a patient, too. I had cancer. And I'm still telling you cancer doesn't scare me anymore because I found a way to get well with non-toxic, natural therapies that don't make you sick, that don't make your hair fall out, and they make your immune system healthier. You'll notice that doctors have a big dread of cancer themselves. They're afraid of getting it. And in fact, most of the time when they talk to a patient, they won't even use the word cancer. They'll use the word malignancy, or they'll say it's a tumor, because they're dreading even saying the word to the patient. Why is this? Well, it's because we see so many cancer patients dying these days. In fact, the deaths from cancer is now approaching 500,000 people a year. That's a lot of people to die from one disease. And in fact, we've been so brainwashed that we hear the diagnosis of cancer and we figure that it equals death. You get cancer and you die. But that's not true. Cancer is really just like any other disease. And you can whip it, you can lick it, you can make yourself better. And again, it doesn't cost a fortune, and it will make your immune system stronger, and you will actually be healthier after you've had the disease. Will you say that's too good to be true? No, it isn't. And you say, well, if this is so easy to do, why is it that we haven't heard about it? Why isn't it on the front pages of the newspaper every day? Well, let's talk about the cancer business. And cancer really is a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business in this country. What would happen if there were not cancer patients anymore to take the treatment from doctors and nurses who get paid to give you those treatments? How about the pharmaceutical companies? They're a $100 billion business in this country every year. They make chemotherapy agents, they make lots of medicines, and they all have side effects. Certainly. They say, well, you're supposed to accept some side effects when you have cancer therapy. Well, it really just hits the cancer cells. Well, if that's true, do you have cancer of the hair follicles? Your hair falls out. That must mean that it's only hitting the cancer cells and you have cancer of the hair follicles. No, it hits a lot of good cells as well. In fact, it hits good cells indiscriminately as well as killing the cancer cells. So we have the pharmaceutical industry. And then we have the AMA. The American Medical Association is the union of doctors. It is a powerful union. It's one of the most powerful unions in the United States. They have lobbyists in Congress. Who do you think they're lobbying for? Do you think they're lobbying for you? No way. They're lobbying for the best interests of the doctor. And then we have the American Cancer Society, something people almost hold in reverence. The American Cancer Society just get a checkup and give us a check. They collect about $400 million from the American people every year. And where do they put that? Well, most of it goes for salaries for the people who are employees of the American Cancer Society. A very small portion of it goes to research and care of patients. And then, of course, we have the National Cancer Institute. That is the division of the National Institutes of Health of our government, which is one of the largest cancer research organizations in the country. Now, let me ask you, what would happen to all the employees at the National Cancer Institute if there was an inexpensive, non-toxic, effective, available cancer cure tomorrow? They'd lose their jobs. What would happen to all the employees and the $400 million that's collected by the American Cancer Society if there were a cancer cure available tomorrow? They would lose their jobs. The same thing goes for the AMA. The same thing goes for the pharmaceutical companies. So we're talking about big business. As one great philosopher said, just follow the money. And that's what you should do whenever you're evaluating a therapy. Who gets rich off of this therapy? Does it help you, or does it help the person who either manufactures it, distributes it, or gives it to you as a treatment? I first got onto this information when I read this book called The Healing of Cancer. And let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Dr. Lorraine Day. For years, I was on the faculty of the University of California, San Francisco. I was vice chairman of the Department of Orthopedic Surgery, and I was an associate professor there. In the middle of establishment medicine, I have been an orthodox medical doctor for all of my career. Also, I was chief of orthopedic surgery at San Francisco General Hospital, which is a major trauma hospital in that city. I'm an orthopedic trauma doctor. I put back together the people who've been shot, stabbed, run over by vehicles, whatever. Those were the people I took care of. I read the medical literature voraciously. I would go to the library and I'd read everything I could about various diseases. But when I left San Francisco General, suddenly I found out that there was a whole library of information outside of the medical library. And guess what it was mostly about? It was about cancer. Barry Lyons, who's the author of this book, The Healing of Cancer, has some very interesting things to say about conventional treatments. Now, conventional treatments are the treatments that the American Medical Association and all of the cancer establishment tell you are the only good ways to treat cancer. And what are they? Well, there's surgery, where they cut it out. And then there is chemotherapy, where they poison it out. And then there is radiation therapy, where they burn it out. So you can cut, or you can poison, or you can burn. Are there other ways to treat cancer? You bet there are, and that's what I'm going to be telling you about in this video. Here's a quote from Barry Lyons' book. In 1975, the respected British medical journal Lancet reported on a study which compared the effect on cancer patients of 1, a single chemotherapy, 2, multiple chemotherapy, or 3, no treatment at all. No treatment proved a significantly better policy for patient survival and for the quality of remaining life. Do you ever hear that in the newspaper or on television? Does the media ever tell you what's going on really in the medical literature with cancer? Here's another quote. And this is from Dr. Alan Levin of the University of California, San Francisco, where I was on the faculty. He said, most cancer patients in this country die of the chemotherapy. Chemotherapy does not eliminate breast, colon, or lung cancers. The fact has been documented for over a decade, yet doctors still use chemotherapy for these tumors. There's a lot of information in this book. I suggest you get this book. I'm going to be telling you about a lot of books that you should read. I want to tell you right up front, I get nothing out of any of these books. I'm recommending them to you because I think they will lead you into a whole new area where you can take charge of your own health. How about the American Cancer Society? In this book, Barry Lyons tells you that the originating charter for the American Cancer Society says that they must disband on the day that a cancer cure is found. Well, what will happen to that $400 million that they collect every year? What will happen to the limousines for the board of directors? What will happen to all the perks they get, the traveling, all the rest of the perquisites they get for their job? What will happen to that if they have to disband? Do you think they're interested in a cancer cure, easily available, particularly one that's inexpensive? Here's another quote. The National Cancer Institute is merely a tool of the American Cancer Society, making a propaganda pitch for that organization. So the next time you think of a checkup and a check for the American Cancer Society, realize that this organization could easily bring a cancer cure to the public, but in the meantime, it would have to close down its doors. How about the AMA? I'm going to read you a newspaper article. This was from the Cedar Rapids Gazette in Iowa, and it's talking about alternative therapies. Assemblyman Bedell, Berkeley Bedell, blasts medical establishment. Unconventional medicine is stymied, says the ex-congressman. Former Iowa Representative Berkeley Bedell, who credits alternative medicine with his recovery from Lyme disease and prostate cancer, Thursday warned that there are powerful forces in government and the corporate medical monopolies that are intent on making unconventional medicine inaccessible to the general public. Bedell, a member of the ad hoc advisory committee to the new federal Office for Alternative Medicine, also called for the dismissal of Joseph Jacobs, who is the director of the Office of Alternative Medicine. Bedell says that Jacobs has not shown the commitment needed to challenge these powerful forces in the National Institutes of Health, in the National Cancer Institute, and others that oppose alternative methods. Bedell addressed Senator Tom Harkin, Democrat from Iowa, who's chairman of the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee that established this Office of Alternative Medicine. He was addressing them during a subcommittee hearing, and here's what he said. Mr. Chairman, it's time for some straight talk. The former Democratic congressman said, there are some powerful forces in our society that are doing quite well with things as they are. The pharmaceutical industry and the American Medical Association have a monopoly on the treatment of cancer and most other degenerative diseases. How could one expect them to welcome change that might challenge their monopoly? Well, he's right. Cancer therapy in this country is a total monopoly. If you go to your doctor will tell you there are only 3 ways to treat cancer. There's surgery, there's chemotherapy, and there's radiation therapy. And in fact, I have a booklet here which will say that is the treatment for breast cancer. It's right here. They tell you these are the only ways to treat it. The only doctors that will be caring for you are your surgeon, your internist, and your oncologist. So, and maybe your radiation therapist. So here it is in this booklet, and on top of that, this booklet tells you and tells your doctor that if your doctor doesn't agree with what you want done for your body, he doesn't have to treat you. He can abandon you as a patient. In fact, I'll tell you, that's what happened to me. I had breast cancer. I didn't want a mastectomy. I didn't want chemotherapy or radiation therapy. I went to a doctor who was supposed to be a very good breast cancer surgeon. But he refused to take care of me unless I let him do either a mastectomy or chemotherapy and or radiation therapy. Well, I walked out of his office. I said, I'm not going to do this. I just want the lump taken out, and I don't want any of those other treatments. I said to him, how do you expect me to get well if you destroy my immune system? You see, cancer is a disease of the immune system. In order for you to get cancer, your immune system has to be working improperly. Everybody gets a few cancer cells in their body every day. And what happens? The immune system takes care of them. It gets rid of those cancer cells. But if the immune system is not working properly, if for some reason it's suppressed, then these cancer cells can grow and they can cause a mass or a tumor. If you need your immune system to destroy the tumor, why would you let someone irradiate you? We know radiation is bad. They tell you, don't get too many chest x-rays and don't get too many x-rays of any sort because it's harmful to your immune system. And yet when your immune system is down, what do? They give you all these toxic therapies. Let me ask you a question. If you have a son or a daughter, suppose you have a teenager and they're healthy, feeling well, why don't you say to them, next Monday instead of going to school, I'm going to take you down to the doctor and we're going to give you 6 weeks of chemotherapy. And you'll probably be vomiting and your hair will fall out and you'll be sicker than a dog. And then we'll go to Hawaii for 2 weeks and we'll have a good time. That is, if you're well enough to have a good time. And then when we come back, we'll give you 6 weeks of radiation therapy. And you'll be weak and sicker. And your son or daughter will say, Mom or Dad, why would you do that to me? I'm feeling fine. And then you say, we won't do it for you. We won't do this to you when you're well. We'll wait until you're sick, and then we'll do it to you. It doesn't make any sense, does it? If it's not a good treatment to give a person when they're well, why would you wait until they're sick and then do this to them? You have a disease that is affecting the immune system, and you got it because your immune system was suppressed. So why would you give a therapy that destroys what's left of the immune system? Just sit back and think. Everyone has become so blinded. Everyone has become so accepting of the dogma. Everyone has become so accepting of the authority. Well, my doctor must know. The arrogance of medicine. I want you to know that I used to be that way too. People would say to me, oh, I'm sure there's a cure for cancer. And I would say, well, I'm a doctor, and if there was a cure for cancer, I'm sure I would know about it. No, and your doctor doesn't know about it either, because he or she doesn't have the time to read outside of the medical library. Why isn't this in the medical library? Well, there's a good reason. The pharmaceutical companies and the AMA control almost everything that's in the medical library. For example, here's a book called The Cancer Industry by Ralph Moss. Who is Ralph Moss? He is the former Assistant Public Affairs Director for Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital in New York. This is one of the major cancer hospitals in America. Why did I say he's the former? Well, they did some studies at Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital on Laetrile. Now, Laetrile is ridiculed, and I used to ridicule it myself, as apricot pits, because the Laetrile, the medicine, is obtained from crushed apricot pits. Well, that's not so strange. You know, digitalis comes from the foxglove plant, and many of the medicines that your doctor gives you originally came from plants. So it's not strange that Laetrile, which is also called vitamin B17, could come from a plant. So they did some studies at Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital on Laetrile. Laetrile is an unproven therapy according to the American Cancer Society. By the way, they have a whole book full of unproven therapies. Anything that is non-patentable and non-toxic goes in the unproven category. So they did these studies on some animals and found out that, in fact, Laetrile caused a major significant decrease in the tumor size of these animals' tumors. So what did they do with that information? They told the public that Laetrile didn't work. And Ralph Moss was one of the people who had to tell the public that it didn't work. The doctor who did the experiments showing that Laetrile did work was actually on the podium at the time they had the press conference. And he stood up and said, I did these experiments and they did work. But did it come out in the secular press? No. Why? Many of the people who own the pharmaceutical companies also have major stock in the newspapers or own them outright. So again, there's much of the news that's managed. Ralph Moss became a part of an underground group called Second Opinion, which started publishing this information out to the public, letting them know that indeed Laetrile did work. What happened to him for being a whistleblower? Well, the same thing that happens to most people. He got fired. And so he spent most of the rest of his career writing books and exposing the cancer business. If you think that the information that you may read in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is one of the most prestigious journals in the country, or in the Journal of the American Medical Association, which again is one of the most prestigious medical journals. I did a little experiment with these journals. You see, the size of the journal is about this big, but that's not all medical information. I'll show you how much is medical information. I put a paper clip on it here. This is the amount, the real amount, that's medical information. What's all the rest? It's all high-priced pharmaceutical ads. What have we got here? We've got huge full-page 6- and 7-page ads. Here's one from the pharmaceutical company Cyril. It's actually numerous pages. It has one page after another, double-sided, all the way throughout the journal. So all the rest of the journal is high-priced pharmaceutical ads. Well, how about the New England Journal of Medicine? Here's how big the New England Journal of Medicine is. And then if we just put a clip on the real medical content and let the pharmaceutical ads fall away, this is what the real journal is. So the major medical journals in this country and in the world get most of their revenue to publish the journal from the pharmaceutical companies. What would happen to those ads if the journal started publishing favorable information on non-toxic, effective cancer cures? Well, the journals would lose their revenue from the pharmaceutical companies. And that's what has been threatened, actually, in the past when they have done such things. Let's talk about what it takes to get a drug onto the market. You have to do a lot of studies, mainly double-blind studies, meaning one group that has the disease and one group that doesn't, and give the medicines to both groups, or give a placebo to another group that does have the disease. These studies take years, and they take millions of dollars. The average cost to get a drug from its beginning stages to the public, you have to get FDA approval, and that costs somewhere between $30 million and $100 million. So of course, in order to get back their return on their research money, they want to be able to patent it. You've heard about patent medicines. That's what they started out being called. This is a patent medicine because it could be patented. If you're going to spend $100 million to get a drug to market, wouldn't you like to have the exclusive patent on it so you could get your return back? Absolutely, it's only good business. But what if the medicine is not patentable? As most of these things that grow in the ground, or these things that can be made inexpensively, or even oxygen therapies, you can't patent oxygen. So do you think that the pharmaceutical companies are interested in bringing something like this to market? Of course not. But are they interested in keeping somebody else from bringing it to market too? You bet they are, because it would cut into their share of the market. And besides that, it might perform better than their high-priced drug. So what's the incidence of cancer in America? Well, 500,000 people each year now die of cancer. They tell us that the life expectancy is increasing because of our wonderful medical system in America. But that is playing with statistics. Do you realize that if you lived 100 years ago, if you lived to the age of 50, your life expectancy was only 2 years less than it is now? So all of our wonderful medicine and all of our high-rise research buildings, what have they done? They've put maybe 2 years onto our lives. But you say, well, the life expectancy is going up. That's because all of it's on the front end, meaning that babies don't die as often during childbirth, and babies and young children don't die of contagious diseases as often as they did in the past. So since these children live, that causes the average statistics to go up. But again, it's all on the front end. They are not prolonging life. 100 years ago, if you lived to be 50, you would survive as long, with the exception of 2 years, as somebody now. So again, this is smoke and mirrors. They want to tell you that they're doing a great job of prolonging your life, but they're not. Let's take breast cancer as an example. What is the incidence of breast cancer in America now? Well, first of all, this is from the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. This is published by the Centers for Disease Control. And this is a recent issue. it tells us that the annual incidence of breast cancer among women increased approximately 52% between 1950 and 1990, while the death rate increased as well. So what happened to this war on cancer? For those of you who are old enough, you remember in 1971, then President Nixon said, we're going to beat this disease, we're going to get a cure, and we're going to have this major war on cancer. It cost a lot of money, and where did that money come from? From your pockets, the taxpayers' pockets. Do we have a cure for cancer available to the general public? Certainly not through conventional medicine. This is an article from 1979 in the Journal of the American Medical Association. This is February 2. Here's what it says on the diagnosis and treatment of breast cancer. Randomized trials comparing surgical treatments of breast cancer show that radical mastectomy offers no greater benefit than simple mastectomy followed by radiation therapy. Now, for years, they were doing radical mastectomies on women, taking out not only the breast, but all of the lymph nodes under the arm. The woman's arm would swell up huge, and they said, this is the treatment. But then what happened? They were wrong. They found out later that that didn't work. And here's an article in the American Medical Association News. It's called Little Progress Against Breast Cancer. And this is a government report. Here's another one. This is from, again, from Lancet, and this is from 1985. And it's entitled False Premises and False Promises of Breast Cancer Screening. The evidence that breast cancer is incurable is overwhelming. Well, that's what he thinks. You can either accept that diagnosis or you can reject it. You can decide to live, or you can decide to say, well, the doctor says I'm going to die, so I'm going to die. In fact, I have friends like that. I have one friend right now who has lung cancer. The doctor told him he has a very short time to live. And guess what? He's accepting that. He goes home, and he's getting into the mode of dying. You don't have to accept that diagnosis. He says here, the philosophy of breast cancer screening is based on wishful thinking, that early cancer is curable cancer. But what they show is that even if you catch it early with orthodox medicines and chemotherapy, that you will not survive any better than if you catch it late. And here are some articles on prostate cancer. This is a recent one from 1992. This is the Journal of the American Medical Association. They're showing that in untreated prostate cancer, untreated, compared to prostate cancer that's been treated with radiation or chemotherapy, that the 10-year survival rate is equal or better to those that are treated. That's if you do nothing. That's if you don't even grab onto a good program of alternative medicine that can make you healthier. Here's another one. This is from the Journal of the American Medical Association, May 26, 1993. It says, the choice of watchful waiting is a reasonable alternative rather than invasive treatment for many men with localized prostatic carcinoma. Prostate cancer, look what they call it, watchful waiting. That means doing nothing. You're better off if you do nothing than if you have their treatment. Here it came out in the newspaper. It says, study suggests prostate cancer treatment not always worth the risks. So, if you're better off with no treatment at all, at least in prostate cancer, why are they doing all these things to cancer patients? Here's a recent article in the American Medical Association News, and it's entitled Mammography Muddle. Consensus is elusive on the value of screening in younger women. Here's what happened. A large study came out from Canada where the researchers found out that women between the ages of 35 and 50 actually had an increase in the incidence of breast cancer if they had regular yearly mammograms compared to those who didn't have mammograms. Well, what does that mean? That means that the radiation from the mammogram is probably causing the cancer. So there was a lot of hullabaloo. They said those Canadians, they don't know how to do research, and there's a lot of name calling back and forth. And the National Cancer Institute finally changed its stance on mammography and said, well, we will encourage it for women over 50, but maybe it shouldn't be done for women under the age of 50 regularly. And in fact, here's another article that says, mammograms won't reduce cancer, the Canadian study says. So what does the American Medical Association publish in their next journal? It says that the study questions the use of mammograms, but some doctors question the study. In other words, this couldn't possibly be true. We have to have mammograms because we have to have early screening. And in fact, shortly after that, here's an article that says, you can't overdo the advice on mammograms. Now, you might think what they're saying is that you should warn these young women that they shouldn't take mammograms, but that's not necessarily true. In fact, there are articles in the literature as far back as this one in the New England Journal of Medicine, and this is back in September of 1976. We're talking about 20 years ago. It says, on August 23, the National Cancer Institute and the American Cancer Society terminated the routine use of X-ray mammography for women under the age of 50 because of its detrimental effects. Wait a second. They've known this since 1976. Here it is in the New England Journal of Medicine. And yet, what do they say? Well, we have to have more and more mammograms, and in fact, they say you can't give enough advice on mammograms, and actually there are some articles in the medical journals now encouraging doctors to encourage women to have more mammograms. Do they care about your health? They've known this for almost 20 years, that there is an increased incidence in the incidence of breast cancer with the regular use of mammograms. Are you hearing about that in the news? Are you hearing about it on television? No. Not only that, here's another article, and this is in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 1993, May 26, which says that when they compared the readings of the mammogram, the radiologist has to look at the mammogram and decide whether you have a mass there or cancer or not. When they compared one radiologist to another, they found that they did not correspond with their readings. In other words, they didn't come up with the same diagnosis in 33% of the readings. So even if you have a mammogram and they squash your breast all down, how would it be if you had cancer in there? And they're squashing your breast. What are those cancer cells going to do? They're going to spread all over your body. But anyway, cancer is a systemic disease. It's not a localized disease. You will have cancer cells circulating throughout your bloodstream, but why have more of them when you get a mammogram and it squashes your breast and squashes the possible tumor? Again, more and more articles saying that mammography trial comes under fire. There's radiating doubt about using mammograms, but here we have it in the American Medical Association News, May 18, 1992. It says, bigger doctor role sought in pushing mammograms. Why would they want doctors to push mammograms when they have found out that they actually increase your chance of getting cancer? Another article shows that low-level radiation poses a serious cancer risk. So is your doctor and is the medical profession really on your side? Now, in all fairness, I have to tell you, your doctor doesn't know this information because your doctor's too busy. He's too busy taking care of patients. He's too busy doing the paperwork that the government requires of him when he sees a patient and when he turns in information to the insurance company or to Medicare or to Medi-Cal or any of these other government bureaucracies. He's too busy. He doesn't know what is actually in the medical literature. Some of this is actually in his library, but he can't keep up with all of the information. Here's another one. This is in 1974, again, at least 20 years ago. Decreased survival related to irradiation postoperatively in early operable breast cancer. This is in Lancet, November 30, 1974. where the doctors knew that if you have postoperative radiation therapy, you have a decreased survival time. And what happens to a child who receives chemotherapy or radiation therapy for a tumor? Here's an article in Lancet in 1992, which is entitled, "How Can One Assess the Damage Caused by Treatment of Childhood Cancers?" and showing that there is a significant increase in the incidence of cancers later on in life if a child does actually survive the treatment and lives with the original cancer. Now we have other problems as well, and that is, guess what they're doing on the studies? They're lying on the results of the studies. This is from March 13, 1994. This was an article in my local newspaper, and here's what it says. A Montreal cancer research team deliberately falsified data for a breast cancer study that is credited with encouraging doctors to perform more partial mastectomies, the Chicago Tribune reported in today's editions. And here it is even reported in the medical journals. This is in the journal Science, 1994, and this is entitled, "How Not to Publicize a Misconduct Finding." What they found out was the doctors in charge of the study actually had known for 2 full years that the study was fraudulent, that some of the researchers in the study had falsified their results. And yet the head clinical investigator kept this information private, kept it from not only the public, not only from the rest of the medical community, but kept it private from the journal that had actually published the original article showing what they figured was the truth. So the chief clinical investigator kept this silent and didn't tell anybody that the data was falsified. And here is a young woman who had had breast cancer treatment based on some of these articles, and she's testifying to Congress. She says, "I told Congress that I based my treatment on this information, and yet this was falsified information." Well, is this an uncommon occurrence? I'm sorry to say it isn't. Here's an article from Newsweek magazine in September 1992. It's entitled, "Is Science Censored?" Now, you would like to think that the information that comes out of the research studies is true, and that you can trust the researchers and that you can trust the doctors. Well, it turns out the doctors who read this information, they can't even trust their own medical journals, because it shows that major medical journals withheld important information about the harm done by electrical current, such as from high wires and all that, in leukemia patients, causing leukemia in children, particularly if these high wires were near schools or near homes. They withheld this information from the public. Why? Because they didn't want to scare them. Well, how about that? Would you be more scared if you had that information, or would you be more scared if your child got leukemia? Well, what's driving all this? And I again say to you, follow the money. Here's an article in Science, 1992. It's entitled, "Breast Cancer's Forced March." By a fluke of politics, the Army has become the lead federal agency in breast cancer research, and now there is a tussle over how it should spend a $210 million bonanza. So one research unit is getting $210 million in order to do one type of research, breast cancer research. So if you think that there are no great forces out there opposing your right to get inexpensive, non-toxic, effective cancer chemotherapies, I think that you should evaluate the literature and think again. Why does a person get cancer? Oh, they say it's in the genes. They're looking for this gene and that gene. Notice there's a gene for everything. There's a gene for alcoholism. There's a gene for every illness. And in fact, what they're really trying to tell you is that this comes out of nowhere. It's just sort of like you're struck by lightning. and you have no responsibility for it, and there's nothing you can do about it. In fact, all you can do is go to your doctor, and your doctor will take care of you. A lot of people used to ask me, well, is my diet right? Does nutrition have anything to do with my disease? And I used to say to them, oh no, you can eat anything you want and stay healthy. Well, of course that wasn't completely true. That's an exaggeration. But the doctors will tell you that. You can eat anything you want and it doesn't have anything to do with your disease. Well, we're starting to hear some other things in the newspapers, read about them and see them on television. And here's one in Time magazine recently where it says that there is an increased incidence of breast cancer in women who've been exposed to DDT. Now, DDT was outlawed in the 1970s, and yet here it's showing up still in women's breast tissue. And then there's another one here from Lancet, and again, I'm showing you this from the medical literature itself. Here's another one that suggests that there are environmental factors that are associated with breast cancer. Here's another one that says pollutants linked to breast cancer. And here's another one in Science which says pesticides and breast cancer. Oh, we don't think there's any link. And yet here's another one from the American Medical Association News which says study looks at link between farmers and cancer. And of course the farmers use a lot of pesticides. And here's another one that says cancer link from drinking chlorinated water. Now, chlorine is a poison. Chlorine is a gas that is poisonous, and it has some carcinogenic or cancer-causing formations in the water. And now we see here fluoride blamed in dialysis deaths. Some patients who were undergoing dialysis were contaminated with an excess amount of fluoride in the water, which is also a poison. Then we have another one here from the Time magazine which says danger from overhead wires, showing an association between disease, particularly malignancy, and these high-tension electrical wires. Here's one from the Wall Street Journal, and it says electric utilities brace for cancer lawsuits, though risk is unclear. And here we have another one talking about the mercury in your fillings. Now, I have a book here, and I will encourage you to read this book. It's called The Toxic Time Bomb. Can the mercury in your dental fillings poison you? And you know, you're told by your dentist so frequently, oh, the mercury in your dental fillings is not toxic. But did you know that when they take the mercury out of your mouth, they have to treat it as a toxic waste? They have to treat it in a special way, and they have to have it picked up specially in special containers. But I guess when they put it in your mouth, it's non-toxic. Only when they take it out of your mouth is there a problem. And we're told over and over by the medical establishment that what you eat has almost no relationship to your health. And yet if you read the newspapers, and if the doctors would only read the journals, they would find out differently. I clipped this out of the newspaper not too long ago. I thought it was interesting that these two were tied one to another at the same place in the newspaper, and I left them together. One says, green tea may help fight cancer, and then the other one says, right next to it, scientists zero in on the gene tied to asthma. So on one side they'll say, oh yes, what you put in your mouth does make a difference, but on the other hand they're looking for the gene for every disease. Here's another one that says scientists stock nutritional ammunition against breast cancer. Another one says in the war against cancer, eat your broccoli and other veggies too. Cancer study makes peppers a hot issue, showing that if you eat certain kinds of peppers, again, you can decrease your risk of cancer. Another one, vitamins combat cancer in China, study shows. And another one, more evidence that fruit and veggies fight cancer. So why is it that we're being told you can eat anything if you have cancer and it's not going to make any difference? Let me ask you a question. If your body is going to build new cells or repair damaged ones, where does it get the raw materials to do that? It can't get it from any place except the food that you eat. It's what's on the end of your fork. It's what you put into your mouth that makes the biggest difference as far as your health. Do you think that your children or yourself could be healthy if you ate soft drinks, drank soft drinks, and ate Twinkies all day long? Of course not. You admit that. Would you put rocks and sand in the gas tank of your new Mercedes? Would it run? No. Why? Because the fuel makes the engine run. What is your fuel? Your fuel is food. There are 3 major premises on making yourself well again. And this applies not only to cancer, but it applies to all disease. First of all, you've got to get a lot of high-powered nutrition into your body. You've heard about the antioxidants in beta-carotene and vitamin A and vitamin C. That's in the news a lot, and yet you go to your doctor and your doctor says it doesn't matter what you eat. So first of all, in order to heal your body, you've got to get high nutrition in. Secondly, you've got to get the toxins out. Where do the toxins come from? Well, they come from a number of places. First, you have electric pollution in your environment, and you'll have pesticides on the lawns and that are in the air. Plus, you have pesticides in your food. In your food, not just on your food. They spray the fields where this produce is growing, but they also put pesticides in the soil that can grow into the plant, so you can't wash it off. So not only do you have pesticides inside the food and on the outside of the food, you will have waxes on many foods, such as apples. They look beautiful in the store, but what happens to that wax when you eat it? And you can't wash it all off. The wax goes straight to your arteries. If you have all this spraying of the food, you can grow produce on soil that doesn't have many nutrients in it. Now, in order to have a healthy plant, you have to put a lot of nutrition back in the soil, and you can't keep growing on the same land over and over again. What do the big farmers do? The agribusiness corporations, they just waste the land with growing the same produce on it year after year after year, season after season, without putting the nutrients back in the soil. How can you get food that doesn't have pesticides on it and has a lot of nutrition in it? You know, when you go to the grocery store and you buy some tomatoes, how do they taste? They taste like cardboard. There's no taste to them. They aren't juicy, they aren't flavorful, they're not sweet. Why? Because they're picked when they're green. So when they're transported to market, they will not bruise. And then they're put in warehouses before they go to market, and they're kept there green until the produce people want to send them to market, and then they will gas them red. So they look like they're ripe, but they're not ripe. And they don't have any nutrition in them, because where can the plant get its nutrition? Only from the soil. It's the only place it can get nutrition. So if you don't have nutritious soil, you can't have a nutritious plant. Can you grow plants without insecticides and pesticides? Absolutely. And that's called organic food. Oh, you say, well, that's what health nuts eat. Not necessarily. Would you make a meal for your children and make a big tossed salad, and before you let them eat it, you'd spray insecticide all over it? I don't think so. But you let the grower do that. So how can you get good nutritious food into your body and get the toxins out? Number one, you eat organically grown food. Food that's grown in nutritious soil, so you'll have a nutritious plant, because nutritious plants withstand the assault of the bugs, and they don't need the insecticides. If you have a healthy plant, you can ward off disease. Just like if you have a healthy body, you are resistant to many diseases, if not all. So number one, eat good food. And juicing is even better, because juicing gives you concentrated nutrients. I drink 36 pounds of carrots a week. You can't eat that many carrots. And you say, oh, well, why aren't you orange? Well, I am a little orange. My palms are a little orange. But I feel great. And I've got all those natural antioxidants running around in my body, killing cancer cells and taking care of the toxins that are in my body. So you want to do juicing. You can do juicing with carrot juice, juicing with green juice, with things like chard and green pepper and romaine lettuce. But you need a presser juicer, not one that spins around, because you only get about 20% of the nutrition when you use a spinning juicer. If you use one that presses the juice, you will get 70% of the nutrition. Where do you get a pressing juicer? Well, the Norwalk company makes these juicers, and it's a two-step procedure. You grind up the food, and then you put it in a hydraulic press, and the juice comes out. People have been cured of cancer, and there are many documented cases of cures of cancer. I'll show you one book that talks about that. It's called the Gerson therapy. Dr. Max Gerson was a medical doctor in Austria. He came to this country and started this therapy. How did he find out about it? He had migraine headaches, and he couldn't get rid of them any way except through his diet. He changed his diet dramatically, and he cured his migraine headaches. His daughter, Charlotte, developed tuberculosis. He treated her with the same diet, and she got well as well. And then he started trying it on cancer patients. And this book tells of numerous instances of even far advanced cancer who were cured. And what do you say? Cured? Well, if you are totally healthy and you don't have any sign of cancer for 10 or 12 years, I would call that a cure. And Dr. Gerson calls that a cure. But Dr. Gerson's therapy is on the list of unproven therapies according to the American Cancer Society and the AMA. So first, get a lot of good food in. Eat organically. Cook your food in stainless steel pots or glass pots and pans so you won't get aluminum, because aluminum is bad for you. It can go to your brain. There may be some association with Alzheimer's. So cook in the stainless steel or glass pots, and you can cook it slowly. It might take an hour and a half on the lowest heat to cook your vegetable. What you do is you dice up organic onion, you put it on the bottom of the pan, and no water, and you put your vegetable in there, put a lid on it so it's tightly sealed, and then you let it cook very slowly for an hour and a half. This keeps the nutrition in, and it doesn't cause the cells in the plant to burst. Well, do you have to get the toxins out? Yes, you do. How do you do that? Well, there are a number of ways to do it. First, the food helps get the toxins out, but then you've got to clean out your colon. It's been said by many, and it's true. Cancer begins in the colon. If you don't have fast elimination, what we call a rapid transit time, the food goes in, it's got to get out in a few hours. You can't just have a bowel movement once every 2 or 3 days. We're taught in conventional medicine that if you don't have any change in bowel habits, even if you don't have a bowel movement for a couple of days, well, that's okay. No, it's not okay. The waste has to get out of your body. If the waste hangs around in your small or large intestine, it will get reabsorbed back into the body. And this is one thing that makes the patient sick. So how do you get it out? First of all, you eat a high-fiber diet with a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, but then, if necessary, and usually it is, particularly if you are a sick individual, take enemas. Oh, the medical profession will say, oh, don't get involved in this enema thing, that's crazy, and besides, it's messy. Well, how are you going to get the toxins out of your body? In fact, this therapy calls for 5 enemas a day. And now you can all sniggle here. These are coffee enemas. Oh, people say, well, I like to drink my coffee. Well, what does the coffee do in the enema? The coffee goes into the hemorrhoidal veins, which are down at the bottom portion of the rectum, and goes directly through the portal vein to the liver. Dr. Gerson found out that the caffeine in the coffee will open up the bile ducts and allow the toxins in the liver to flow into the intestine and out of your body. So it's not just a joke. These coffee enemas will work in many instances. Now I should tell you, I am not talking to you necessarily to prescribe these things to you. If you're a cancer patient, all I'm doing is informing you of what is out there. I'm not telling you to stop the therapy that you're doing and do this. That's up to you. Should you talk about this with your doctor? Sure, you can, but your doctor's not going to know anything about it. And since he doesn't know anything about it, and since he will be arrogant because he's supposed to know everything, he'll tell you, oh, this is quackery. But what does he have for you? He has cutting, poisons, and burning, radiation, surgery, and chemotherapy. So I would suggest that you at least look into some of these alternatives. Now, there are a number of others that have shown clearly that you can cure cancer. Certainly you can get people a lot better with a lot better quality of life, but there are even many, many hundreds to thousands of documented cures. And I have a whole stack of books, and I want to tell you that I am only scratching the surface. In fact, if you really want to go into this extensively, there is a book, and again, I get nothing from this. These are books I have read, and I just want to tell you what you can do to educate yourself. This is a book of alternative therapies, and it will show you most of the ways out there that are non-toxic and inexpensive that are available to you to get well. Here's another one. This is the Hoxsey method. This is a video called The Quack Who Cured Cancer. Well, they called him a quack because he wasn't a doctor, but he had a special potion that was handed down to him through his father and his grandfather. And the way they found out about it was that the grandfather had a horse who developed cancer. They put the horse out to pasture, and suddenly the horse cured his own cancer. Why? Because he was eating special plants. So the elder Hoxsey went out and collected those plants and made a special potion out of it and started giving it to other animals and found out that it cured cancer in these other animals. Mr. Hoxsey, during his heyday in the 20s to the 40s, 1920s to 40s, actually cured thousands of people of cancer. But who came along to stop him from doing that? Well, none other than Dr. Morris Fishbein. Who is Morris Fishbein? He was the editor of the Journal of the American Medical Association for years. He came after Mr. Hoxsey, even though this was shown to be very effective in curing cancer, and he asked Mr. Hoxsey if he could buy this potion. Mr. Hoxsey said, well, yes, I'll sell it to you under one condition. My granddaddy said that I had to give this away to anybody who couldn't afford to buy it. So if you will agree to that, I'll sell this to you. Well, Dr. Fishbein said, no way, we're not going to give this away. And so from then on, when Hoxsey said he wouldn't sell it to Dr. Fishbein and his FDA and his hit squad eventually closed down all of Hoxsey's clinics and put him in prison a number of times. In fact, he had to bail himself out so many times he carried about $10,000 around in his pocket. Did he get that $10,000 wealth from exploiting cancer patients? No. He got it from his oil business that they found on his Oklahoma property. They drilled and found oil there because he would give this method away to treat any patient who couldn't afford to buy it. On this video, you will see the actual footage from the newsreels where Hoxsey eventually sued Dr. Fishbein and won and forced Dr. Fishbein to step down as editor of the Journal of the American Medical Association. He was sent out in disgrace. This is Dr. Fishbein. And what has the AMA done about this? Well, they have made him a hero. And let me show you, this is from a recent edition of the Journal of the American Medical Association announcing the Morris Fishbein Fellowship. And here it is, Dr. Morris Fishbein, a great hero for tracking down, stalking, persecuting, and prosecuting many alternative medicine doctors. Ozone. Ozone is not smog. Ozone is O3. It's another atom of oxygen stuck on the molecular oxygen, which usually runs around with two atoms together. This video, Ozone, Politics and Medicine, shows that the government's trying to destroy this treatment as well. This is nothing more than plain old oxygen, something that occurs naturally in the atmosphere. But can you patent it? No, you can't. Is it inexpensive? Yes. And I want to tell those of you who are interested, these ozone generators are still around, and you can use them yourself. But are they difficult to get? Yes, they are. So you have to look around, but they are available. Here's another one, shark cartilage. It was found by this Dr. Lane that sharks don't get cancer because the cartilage of a shark has several factors in it called anti-angiogenesis factors, which is a long word meaning that when a tumor grows, it needs blood supply. This shark cartilage causes the excess blood supply, which is just supplying the tumor, to stop. It will not continue growing. but it won't affect your regular blood vessels. And this has been shown to be very effective in many kinds of cancer, particularly breast cancer and some colon cancers. Now again, many of these work better for one cancer than another and for one disease than another. And there's a lot of information, so you can search it out for yourself. Here's another one, green barley essence. This is the powdered form of the young green barley plant. This substance has about 1,000 times more nutrition in it than your most nutritious green that you normally eat at your table. Why is that? Well, this was found out by a Dr. Hagiwara who had some health problems and went in search of the most nutritious food in the world. He found this barley green, and a close friend of mine who is a nurse wrote to me one time when she saw me on television telling me that she had been cured of lymphoma by using barley green. She then quit her job as a nurse. Of course, she had had all the radiation, the chemotherapy, and the tumors were growing on her neck so rapidly that within 24 hours she would have another tumor the size of a hen's egg. They had done the chemotherapy and the radiation therapy, and they'd sent her home to die because it wasn't working. And she subsequently went on barley green and was cured. This has been about 10 or 12 years ago, and she's still cured. Here's another one, Dr. Gaston Naisons, a PhD in Montreal, Canada, who has an alternative therapy called 714X. Well, the establishment medicine says, well, this is quackery. This man is a fraud because we've tested 714X and it doesn't kill cancer cells. That's right, it doesn't kill cancer cells. What it does is it's a camphor compound that supplies the cancer cells with all the nitrogen they need so they won't break down normal cells. And when they're supplied with the nitrogen they need to divide as rapidly as they wish, when they don't kill and destroy the normal cells, then the immune system naturally occurring in the body can become well again and then get rid of the cancer. Here's another one, Virginia Livingston Wheeler, who is dead now, but she came up with an idea of vaccines against your own bacteria. Not vaccines with somebody else's blood or body fluids, but with your own bacteria. And she was able to cure or make much better, improve the quality of life dramatically for many, many cancer patients. But again, these people don't want a whole lot of publicity because who's after them? The FDA, the American Medical Association, and again, in their own literature, they talk a lot about that many of these things can kill certain organisms in the laboratory. Here's one article from the orthodox medical literature showing studies on the biological effects of ozone. It causes the induction of tumor necrosis factor. It means that it causes the formation of a factor that will destroy tumor cells. Here's another one showing that even if a person's getting chemotherapy, that the chemotherapy, if the cancer cells become resistant to it, they will become sensitive to it again if you give this ozone at the same time. And here's another one. This is again from a major medical journal called Blood. Inactivation of the human immunodeficiency virus by ozone in vitro, meaning that ozone will kill the AIDS virus in the laboratory. And in fact, a number of doctors have been using ozone in their offices to cure AIDS patients and to cure cancer patients. What's happened to them? Well, here it is. This is from the Desert Sun, a local newspaper. This is August 1993. Controversial diet doctor's license suspended. Why? Because Dr. Robert Atkins, a well-known diet doctor, was using ozone to treat cancer patients and AIDS patients. They took his license away even without a hearing. And here's some more. Anti-neoplastons, a Dr. Brzezinski, who's been curing and making improvements, great improvements in cancer patients for many years, and they now declare this an unproved cancer therapy. Jimmy Keller, a man who was cured many years ago, over a decade ago, of melanoma by these non-toxic therapies, opened a clinic and started treating patients. They said, well, he was practicing medicine without a license, and so he went to Mexico, and the federales from America went across the border, kidnapped him, brought him back, and put him in jail. And what for? For curing cancer patients with non-toxic therapies. The FDA is raiding doctors' offices for vitamins. Here is one where they invaded Dr. Jonathan Wright's office up in Kent, Washington, because he was giving patients vitamin B injections. They said, well, you're using an unapproved vitamin. Why was it unapproved? Because he got it from Germany because it doesn't have any preservatives in it. And all the vitamin B in this country has preservatives in it. So in fact, they are storming doctors' offices. They came in with guns drawn, flak jackets on, held the receptionist up with her arms extended because she was at gunpoint, terrorized these people. What for? Vitamins. You've noticed that the FDA is trying to close down the vitamin stores. They want to take away your right to cure yourself of these diseases. So what you have to do is be aware of these alternative therapies. You have to clean out your system of the toxins that are in it. You have to decrease the toxins in your environment. Get rid of the pesticides. Get rid of the detergents in your kitchen that have all sorts of chemicals in it. Get rid of the clothing that has formaldehyde in it. You know, they put formaldehyde in the new clothes and in even the yardage that you would buy to make a dress. So you have to get rid of those excessive pollutants in your environment, and you have to start eating good food. So what's the bottom line? How can you take charge of your health and get yourself healthy again? Well, there are some basic things. First of all, you need to eat your food firsthand. Don't eat secondhand food. What do I mean by secondhand food? Well, that's meat, whether it's red meat or turkey or chicken. Do you really want to eat the grass after the cow has eaten it? You're going to eat all the cow's diseases. You're going to eat all the pesticides in the cow because it's been shown that about 80% of all the pesticides in America goes on to the grain that's fed to cattle. So you eat the pesticides, you eat its disease, you eat all the hormones that are given to the cows to cause them to give more milk or to cause them to grow fatter. And there are all sorts of things like that done to chickens and turkeys. And of course, as far as fish and seafood are concerned, there's mercury and other pollutants in the water in our streams and in our rivers. So eat your food firsthand. What does the cow do? He eats green. That's what you should do. Eat green. Everything comes from green. The sunlight nourishes the green. In fact, it's been said that plants are nothing more than frozen light. No plant can live without sunlight. So you need to eat a vegetarian diet. Oh, how can you give up your meat? Well, go to a slaughterhouse and see what they do, how they drag that meat across the floor, and just read the newspapers about all of the diseases that are caused from foodborne illness. So you're going to have to give that up because you don't need all that other disease. So eat organic food. Eat a lot of fruits and vegetables that are grown with a lot of nutrition. And don't eat meat, poultry, or fish. Maybe a little fish if you can get good, clean fish. And then, of course, the best thing to do would be to grow your own food. If you can do that, you can not only grow your vegetables and your fruits, but you can also grow herbs. Here is a book called Square Foot Gardening. You don't need very much space to grow your own food, but there are many natural food centers and health food stores that carry organically grown food. Also, you can grow your herbs. There are many herbs that will give you life-saving products. The scientific validation of herbal medicine will show you how to distinguish which herbs will work for you, and this is all done with referencing from the medical literature. So this isn't just off of the top of someone's head. Then, of course, there are special guides to cancer therapy. Here's one written again by our friend Ralph Moss, who earlier wrote The Cancer Industry. This will tell you various non-toxic ways to make yourself better with herbs, with vitamins, and with minerals. As far as the alternative doctors are concerned, again, this book called Options, the Alternative Cancer Therapy book, shows you where to go for your treatments and which treatments are available. Now, this book is just a smaller version of this larger one that I showed you on alternative medicine, the definitive guide, which includes almost everything that you would want to know about alternative medicine. I don't want to gloss over the necessity for exercise. You really need to exercise as well as change your diet and the toxins around you. You don't need to do heavy exercise. You don't need to be a weightlifter, but you need to walk. You should walk a couple of miles to 3 or 4 miles every day and get out in the sunshine to do it. Not only that, you can buy many books at your health food store. I would suggest that you go to your health food store and start looking at the books that are available there. Here's one called Healing Nutrients by Patrick Quinlan. This one tells you how to discern which vitamins and minerals to use and which ones to use to make yourself healthy. Here's another one called Garlic for Health. Did you know that garlic is actually an antibiotic? Garlic will lower your blood pressure. Garlic will build your immune system. Oh yeah, you heard that and thought it was an old wives' tale. Well, it's not. I used to think it was an old wives' tale too, but it's true. Here's another one called Sunlight, telling you the importance of actually getting the same rays from the sun that the plant gets. You can't live without sunlight. And yet the doctors are telling you more and more, stay indoors, the sun is bad for you. Well, it turns out that if you have the proper nutrients in your body, the proper vitamins and minerals, you can be out in the sun for reasonable periods of time, and this will make you even healthier. And then, of course, there's vitamin C. Remember how they laughed at Linus Pauling, the Nobel Prize winner, when he said that vitamin C will help prevent colds. Well, it's true. It will also help prevent cancer, and it will help prevent cataracts and many other diseases. The other two books I have here are called Third Opinion. There are books such as these which will tell you the cancer clinics that are available not only in America but around the world, in Mexico, the ones that have been driven to Mexico because the AMA and the FDA didn't want them in this country. And these are available to help you in your attempts to get well. You can look through this, find the doctor's name, find the kind of therapy that's given, how to contact them, and about how much it will cost for your treatment. Again, these are relatively inexpensive compared to orthodox medicine. One problem, of course, is that the AMA and the FDA works in conjunction with the insurance companies to try to keep the insurance companies from paying for this kind of therapy. Therefore, some of it comes out of your pocket, or maybe all of it comes out of your pocket. But what a better way to get well. You don't have to destroy your immune system in order to get better. Again, remember, if you wouldn't do this to your child when they're well, why would you do it to someone when they're sick? There are other ways that you can cleanse your system of the toxins. Number one is drink a lot of water. If you're taking juices, that will help, and you'll get your moisture from the juices. But if you're not, drink at least 8 glasses of water a day to flush your system. Plus, there's another way to do it, and that's with chelation. You've probably never heard of it, because orthodox doctors rarely offer a patient chelation. I'll explain to you what it is. It's an intravenous fluid that's put into your vein. You go to the doctor, you just sit there for several hours, you can read a book, and it's a fluid that contains a compound called EDTA. Now, this is approved in orthodox medicine for children who have been poisoned with lead poisoning or something like that. But they say it's not approved for these other heavy metals. Well, it can get mercury from your amalgam fillings out of your body. It can get aluminum out of your body. And it can also get calcium out of your body. But you say, well, I need my calcium. Well, yes, you do, but you don't need the calcium that's in the plaque that's in your arteries, that's closing down your blood vessels and not causing enough blood to flow to your heart or other areas of your body. Why does orthodox medicine not endorse chelation? It's safe. It's been done on thousands of people, millions of treatments, and yet they say this is quackery, this is unorthodox therapy. Well, if you undergo chelation for 1/10 the price of a coronary artery bypass, you won't need that surgeon to do that bypass procedure. And you won't need an operation on the arteries in your legs because you have so much pain when you're walking around. So again, they do not want to endorse this therapy because it's bad for business. So here you have it. Eat properly, eat good, nutritious, organically grown food, get the toxins out of your body, don't get any more toxins in, and take charge of your health. Do you want to really rely on the National Health Plan and the government bureaucracies that run the post office and the IRS to take charge of your health for you? I say do yourself a favor. Take charge of your own health and do it today.